do that. Okay, there we go. Everything started, the recording started. I want to welcome you two and anybody else that happens to be listening for joining and seeing what it's all about. So the topic is going to be dissolving the ego and emotional well-being. And after I put that title in, I got to thinking about it. And I was like, oh no, I don't really like the way that it sounds. I'm talking about, I don't mean it as I'm dissolving the ego and dissolving the emotional well-being. That sounds horrible. So we're dissolving the emotion or the ego to work on our emotional well-being. So like I was saying before I started the recording, when I stumbled on this a couple years ago, I really didn't think it was kind of touted as being a all-purpose solution to pretty much anything and everything emotional and mental, within reason, of course. And I wasn't too sure about it then. And so I started taking, I practiced with it. I started taking more, taking the training for it rather than just the demo and practicing with that. And I realized that it, to some extent, it might even be more all-encompassing than what it was first touted as being. And that's kind of what brought me to bring it here. It's a very simple process. It'll probably take, if one of you is willing to be a volunteer, it might take 20 to 30 minutes to go through the process, or to do it as a group, it might take about as long. But once you see it and you understand the steps and the actual process, it gets a lot simpler, and it doesn't have to take that long. The more you practice it and use it as an actual practice, the faster it gets. And even some of the processes or the steps that I'm going to go over can be kind of dissolved also. Just like we're dissolving the ego, we can dissolve the step-by-step process into something more instantaneous that can be done on the fly. So I do have I said it was going to be short on theory, short on talking. I am going to talk a lot, but it's going to be mostly to guide the experience. And so I have a very short slideshow, PowerPoint put together to kind of ease into it. And it's all of 6 slides. So that should show just how little theory we're going to go into. So I'm going to pull that one up and we'll go through that and we'll talk about it a little bit. Nobody's muted, everybody's video is on. Feel free to talk away. That's the beauty of this and why I chose doing it in Zoom versus Facebook. Because Facebook, I obviously can't do that and we can't get the instantaneous feedback. Whereas here, everything's perfect, everything's great, everybody can communicate. It should even pop up with whoever's talking right now on the screen. And so you get to see exactly who's talking and exactly what they're going through. So if everybody's set, I'm gonna share this slideshow and we will get started. Okay, I'm not entirely sure what is showing up here. Okay, so you see the slideshow now?
Yes.
Okay, now I'm going to test this out real quick. Do you still see the slideshow or do you see my notes?
It looks like a web page to me.
Yeah, that's the ego.
Did it change back? It's hosted by Google, so it's displayed just as a website.
Yeah. I mean, I could see it says dissolving the ego and emotional well-being.
Okay. All right. And that's still all you see right now, right?
Correct.
Perfect. All right. So there we go. The topic is dissolving the ego and emotional well-being. So the process itself has its roots in some spiritual traditions, and probably the strongest similarities are to a. Are you familiar with self-inquiry?
Like introspection?
Essentially, I don't know if you've heard of Ramana Maharshi, and there's a couple books that he's written, and his entire philosophy really is about enlightenment. And his path to enlightenment is sitting in meditation and asking yourself, who am I? Yeah. And the idea is that as you go through this process, you ask yourself, who am I? And you realize who you're not.
Right.
And as you go through the process over time, you've eliminated basically everything. If you're doing it right in the way that he teaches, in the way that he expects it to be realized, you essentially eliminate everything other than who you are, which is kind of vague. But essentially it brings you into this idea of enlightenment and total awareness, if that makes sense. So it's a very simple book. I think his most popular book on it is something like 30 or 60 pages. It's very short. And one of the issues that people have is that there really isn't any guidance. That essentially is the guidance, is to ask yourself, who am I? And of course he does, he's done, he's long since passed, but he would sit and have his followers come to him and have discussions and talks and give guidance. But just like most gurus, it's very vague guidance. So the idea is that the person that actually developed this technique followed him, but found that where these things were lacking, it could actually be answered. We could have a process that's very simple and very straightforward. So everything that I'm going to be talking about today about dissolving the ego and your emotional well-being really is in line with this concept of enlightenment or a spiritual awakening. And the next few slides that we talk about are gonna really open that up and explain that a little bit more, what I mean by that. So, what is enlightenment? What are your takes on it? What do you say or think enlightenment is? Obviously, I went a little bit ahead, and I've got some questions on the screen.
For me, enlightenment really is just coming to the realization that the world is not as we've been taught that it is. I don't know. I'm not even sure how to put that into words, to be honest. Just going through the process, and discovering the meaning behind your experience and choosing, despite that experience, choosing to love yourself and all of those around you.
That's awesome. I mean, that's really good. And I think if at any point you've heard anything else that I've said, I'm a big fan of this concept of reality and what reality is, and that essentially there isn't really a common reality that we all share. It is on our minds, and it's how we interpret things. Did you have anything to add in there, Missy?
I agree with Jade. I mean, you can look up the definition of enlightenment and, and state that, but I think it's individual, and it's kind of difficult to put into just a succinct sentence. But for me, enlightenment always involves knowledge and an awakening of sorts, like Jake was talking about. And
yeah. So on the screen, on the slide there is the quote from Dogen that's been translated in a couple different ways, but essentially it's enlightenment is the intimacy with all things. So to some extent, it's the awakening to everything, the association with everything, the dissolution into everything. There's a lot in common with the concept at its core of mindfulness and being aware of everything that's around us and everything that's in us and our relationship with it. A lot of common definitions deal with the dissolution of the ego or the transcendence of the I. And those are core to what we're going to be, all three of those things on the screen are core to what we're actually going to be working with and dealing with tonight. And if you choose to go forward with it and keep using this as a practice indefinitely. So I'll throw this in there right now, but none of this is about like that. I guess when you talk about enlightenment and awakening, there's different ideas about it. Some people see it as a slow process that we gain over time. And sometimes in some traditions, it's this marvelous, magical awakening that happens instantaneously. Maybe you spent your whole life meditating, but all of a sudden, instantaneously, you've achieved it. And that's not what this is. Tonight, as we go through it, there's a very good possibility that you'll experience some kind of, you'll have an experience of, oh, that's what it is. I have that experience every single time, but it's a slow process. You'll have it and then you'll lose it, and then you'll have it again and you'll lose it again, until ultimately you stop forgetting to hold on to it and you have it. You open yourself up to that experience constantly. But that's another part of this whole process that we're going to get into. So again, this isn't necessarily geared towards achieving enlightenment or awakening, but it has its roots in that. And it does deal with dissolving the ego. And we'll get to why that is pretty soon here in one of these next slides. So what is the ego? The ego is our identity. It's how we identify ourselves. And it's been defined a couple different ways, but at its core, that's what it is. It's our identity. Would anybody disagree with that?
No.
No.
So another issue or another idea is that, do we have one self or do we have many selves? And I am of the mind, and you'll see and you'll be able to experience it firsthand as we get through this, that we actually have many selves. There's not just one self or one true and authentic self, if you will. We have many selves. And William James has a quote here that goes, "Properly speaking, a man has as many social selves as there are individuals who recognize him and carry an image of him in their heads." So all these people that we interact with, who view us and see us and think of us in a certain way, their idea of us is a self. How we are in work might be different from how we are with family and how we are with friends and how we are in any number of different situations. And each one of those is just as true and authentic as the other, but none of them are quite the same. So they're all a version of ourself.
Completely agree.
Definitely.
What is this? Wendy, I don't know if you did it on purpose, but it says you have your hand raised. Did you have a question or anything? She's muted now. Let me, okay. So yeah, that's the general idea that I wanted to introduce before we move on into this, because that is another, again, we're working on dissolving the ego, and we need to identify kind of what the ego is. So.
Okay, I think I figured this out. I'm sorry, guys.
Oh, you're fine.
We're driving down the road. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, you're fine. So, is there a difference between the ego, or self, and I?
Okay.
I don't think that there is. Conceptually, maybe we use the words themselves or the terms in different ways, but at the core,
I may be wrong.
the ego, the self, and the I
Been to a place
are the same thing.
They're just different,
first exit right over the river.
different facets of the same being.
Exactly. They essentially they
Maybe
represent the same core state. They just it's just a different way of phrasing it.
if you just keep on going.
It's like the difference between saying I and me.
That's Gordon Highway and all that
We're
stuff.
still talking about the same person or the same thing or the same idea. So at some point in this, I'm going to switch from talking about the ego
Gordon Highway.
or using the term ego, and instead I'm going to use the term I. So we're not going to be talking about egos anymore. We're going to be talking about I. But I want you to know that I mean the same thing.
Okay.
Okay? So what does the ego have to do with our emotions? What does dissolving the ego do for us on an emotional level, and what do they have in common? What's the deal with that? So the ego is clingy,
Oh.
right? The ego is clingy. It clings to, well, the ego of the I is, it clings to whatever helps it to survive. It's a survival mechanism. The ego is us. The ego is I, it's me, it's myself. And for me to carry on, for me to continue on, I have to fight to survive. So I'm going to fight to make sure that I stay here. And that's what the ego does. It fights to make sure that it stays here and doesn't go anywhere. Right?
Yes.
So it's clingy, it's clinging. But what is it clinging to? It's clinging to beliefs, thoughts, ideas, feelings, emotions, other people's beliefs, things that may or may not serve us right now. At some point, yeah, it was taught to us. We learned it through trial and error, maybe. Through our experiences, we developed these beliefs, thoughts, and ideas about ourselves, about our world. And they served us at that point. Because they served us, they helped us to survive. And so now our ego is clinging to it to continue to survive. But that doesn't mean that it currently serves us anymore. It just means that our ego is clinging to it. Does that make sense? So even our emotions that no longer serve us. So when I talk about emotions, and I've talked about this before, but not tonight, I make a distinction between feelings and emotions, where feelings are what we feel in the moment. And emotions are the feelings that we didn't let go of. Emotions are the feelings that we hung on to for safekeeping. We bottled them up. We didn't want to experience it. Maybe we wanted to save them and experience them later. Even if they're bad, maybe we thought that there was going to be a day that was just too good that we needed to rain on our own parade. So we saved up all of our sadness, anger, shame, guilt, and we decided we're going to cling to that so that one day when we're feeling really good about ourselves, we could just squash that down. Because that's essentially what we do. For whatever reason, a lot of us deal with shame and guilt. And I can't honestly imagine a situation where those feelings or those emotions do serve us. But at some point, we were taught to experience that, and we saved it. So the ego clings to these things. It saves it because it served us at one point. We continue to think that, okay, well, we're going to need this at some point. It's like a life vest. Great. When you're out on a boat, you put the life vest on because you might fall off. But what the ego is doing with our emotions and our beliefs and our thoughts is like wearing the life vest 24/7 after you've gotten off the boat. It no longer serves us, so why are we clinging to it? So if we're stuck in our emotions, or if we're stuck in these beliefs and ideas and thought processes that don't serve us and bring us down and make us feel uncomfortable or bring up other negative thoughts and energies to us, what do we do about that? You know, I've worked with people who say, oh yeah, I feel like I'm just, especially when we talk about the difference between feelings and emotions. I'm a huge fan of living with your feelings and experiencing it in the moment. I'm not a huge fan at all of storing those as emotions and saving them for later and experiencing them consistently and constantly. But I've worked with people, even in the group, who have said, oh yeah, it feels like I'm just living in my emotions. I'm stuck in them. I can't get away from them. That doesn't serve us. But how do you get away from something that's trapped you?
I don't. So how do you get away from something that makes you feel stuck like that?
That's a perfect question, because that's exactly what one of the things that this technique is perfect for. So if we're stuck on these things, maybe we can look at the ego that keeps clinging to it.
Right.
Maybe it's the ego that won't let it go.
No. Okay.
So, slide transition. Let's get started.
All right.
So, is everybody in a position, a place where they can be comfortable?
Yes.
Where they can, Wendy, you're not driving, are you?
No, my husband.
Okay. Perfect.
Very good question.
Okay. Because I want everybody to be able to really, like I said, it's a very experiential process. So I want everybody to actually be able to experience it.
Okay.
So, and I don't know everybody's experience level, does everybody meditate?
Yes. Every day, multiple times a day.
No.
No.
I try to. I'm not very good at it yet.
It
Not
takes time
enough.
and patience.
Well, Missy, this is going to be it's going to start off easy for you, I should say. And it might start off a little bit difficult for somebody who doesn't meditate as often, because I'm going to ask you to get into a relaxed, calm state. Okay? So whatever you need to do to relax, feel grounded, go ahead and take a moment to do that. Sit in a place that's comfortable. So I hope everybody brought an issue with them. I know I didn't put that out there in the description at any point, but I hope that everybody that's here tonight and everybody that tunes in later on in the recording, I hope everybody remembered or conveniently thought ahead to bring an issue with them to work with.
Okay.
So, because that's going to be paramount to the whole experience.
Right.
But in my experience, everybody usually has an issue. Ah,
Without it,
you got your candle. Jade has
Palo Santo.
Palo Santo, yeah. Awesome.
We're almost home, so I will be a little more comfortable. But I'm pretty comfortable in the back seat, and everybody else driving and doing everything.
Perfect.
My big meditation stone.
Nice.
It's a golden sky jasper. It's Sanskrit stone.
Okay.
Nice.
Very nice.
I have my prayer quartz.
Mine are at the house.
I don't.
So just let me know when everybody's getting comfortable, and and we'll get started with this.
Ready? Oops.
Okay, everybody's ready?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so for this exercise, for this process, I want you to pick an issue or a difficult experience that's kind of mild to medium in intensity. So nothing too severe, nothing that's going to bring up hopefully any traumatic experiences, simply because we don't have the time right now. Not to say it won't work for that, we just don't have the time to get into it in as much depth. So does everybody, just let me know when you've chosen something medium to mild intensity that you'd like to work on and work to dissolve and work with here.
Lay down. Lay down. Thank you. I'm ready.
It's hard because the only ones I can think of are like,
Well, just pick one then. It doesn't.
oh, I've got one.
Okay.
It's just not mild, but it'll be all right.
Thinking, I'm like, how do I don't have any
Yeah,
mileage.
I worked through
Nothing
my
mild,
life.
nothing where somebody just like irks you or something that just pushes your buttons, irritates you, maybe not pushes you over the edge, but just gets under your
Okay.
skin.
Got one of them.
Now, I'm going to try to do this as a group process,
Okay.
but I would like if somebody would like to be a volunteer and work through it, and we don't have to get into the content or the specifics of the issue, but just as somebody to be the guinea pig, if you will, and the volunteer to go through it so that everybody can go through it at once, but it helps to have somebody specific to talk it through with and to demonstrate. So if any of you would like to, Jade, you raise your hand?
Yeah, I'll do it.
Okay. So again, everybody can do this at once. Okay, the steps are going to apply to you as well, but there are certain things where I'm going to be working with you one-on-one to an extent, and again, everything applies. You can still follow along, but there are steps where I might go further with Jade than you need to go, or the things that Jade responds with might not be the same things you do, but that's fine. Okay, so as long as everybody's good with that, we can do it this way, and it should at the very least, if you can't in this kind of a setting actually work through the issue that you've got on your mind, following the steps and seeing how it works out, you should be able to do it in a basic sense on your own and still be able to work with it. So that should help, and that should be good. So if everybody is good and everybody's got an issue, we can get started. So once you've chosen that issue, that thing that's irksome and just kind of gets under your skin, or you have a stronger reaction to, that's fine. All I can say is if it's a stronger reaction, you may or may not see the benefits in in such a short session. So as long as you've got something in mind, go ahead and get comfortable, relax as much as you can relax with this on your mind, and then imagine that it's happening now, right now. Imagine that you're in that moment, experiencing that issue, and notice how you feel in response to it. So imagine that you're in the moment, you're experiencing the issue, and then notice your physical response to it.
Well, once again, Jim, thank you.
So Jade, how do you
Pleasure.
feel in response to it? Where does the issue? Where is the issue?
Your church tomorrow.
Physically, on your body, around your body, in the space around you. How do you feel?
My jacket tomorrow.
Feel kind of like a lump in my throat, and my heart, as soon as I like started thinking about it, like my heart was palpitating a little bit harder, my jaw tensed up, and I know in these types of situations, the one I'm thinking of, I tend to kind of zone out. It's an avoidance tactic. I'm aware. So I'll just kind of pick something and stare off at it, or but it's very intense in order to keep myself from responding to something that I don't necessarily need to respond to.
Okay. So you feel it in your, so you feel it as a lump in your throat and your heart. Okay. So what I want to point out is that, again, like I briefly mentioned, content is not important. Okay. Content, how you, what we're looking for here is the actual physical sensations and the qualities of the sensation itself. It's less about how you react or how you respond to it. So while that's good, it's good to know and be able to be there. One of the benefits of this is when we actually remove the content and we work specifically with the sensations themselves. So for this, I'm going to focus in on that feeling in the throat and the heart, the lump in the throat and the heart.
Okay.
Does that fit with you? That's where you feel when you're in that situation, when you're in that moment, you feel your reaction and that sensation in your heart and in your throat?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. How big? If you had to say like a size, is it your heart and restricted to the size of your throat, or is the sensation of it, that discomfort, that issue, is it restricted to that small of an area, or is it bigger? Is it actually in your throat, or is it maybe outside of your throat, maybe a little bit behind your throat, in front of your throat?
It almost, well, no. I mean, the sensation that I get, it literally feels like someone reached into my skin and is gripping my throat.
So it's inside of your throat.
Yeah, like something just grabs hold and just stays there.
Okay. So it's when you talk about somebody grabbing your throat, so it's a restriction. When you say it's a lump, it's a restriction, it's tight.
Yeah,
You say it's hard.
it is, and it's it definitely, now that I'm thinking more, when I get that sensation, my breathing shallows out. But yeah, I mean, it is definitely internal. But like I said, what it feels like, what I imagine in my mind when it happens, it feels like a hand just grabbed a hold of my throat and squeezed it.
Okay. So next I want to invite everybody. Okay. Everybody do the same things. So the same thing, focus on the issue, focus on the situation, feel where it is in your body. Okay, find that location where you feel that sensation, that issue. Where is it in your body? Feel the sensation qualities of it. So try to separate out the content, separate out your reactions from it, and just the sensation quality of, is it heavy? Is it light? Is it soft? Is it hard? Is it fuzzy? Is it loud? Is it bright? Do you see it as a color? Whatever the sensation qualities of it are, just feel that, experience that, and focus on that for a moment. So focus on where it is, what it feels like specifically, and try to get as detailed into that as you can comfortably get. You want to really get into the sensation quality of it. Okay, so now I want to take a moment to experience awareness, okay? So I know that we're all sitting here, wherever you are, in front of a camera, sitting in this room here. But I want you, I mean, you're aware of the sensation that you just dove into, that you just started to really experience inside of yourself, right? But it's not just that. If you're present right here and now, your sense of awareness is beyond that, isn't it? So I want you to experience awareness as, if a sound happens on one side of you, you hear that. If a sound happens on the other side of you, you hear that. So you're aware of that. If you have your eyes closed, you're aware of the space that's around you. You're aware of the things that are touching you. Even though you can't see them, you're aware of them. You're aware of the space around you. If we hear a sound, is there a limit to where that sound could be for us to be aware of it? Does it matter how far away it is? Is there a wall that says, I'm not aware of anything beyond this? No, there's not. So awareness is the capacity to notice. It's the capacity to notice everything that takes place around us, and even the things that aren't necessarily close to us. You're aware of the people that are in the room with you, the objects that are in the room with you. You're aware of the other people in this video session, even though they're not here. You're aware of all the sounds, the smells, the sights, and the feelings of everything that's around you right now. And even the sounds and sights and smells that aren't particularly close to you. One of the things that I like to point out with awareness is that if you were to go outside and look up into the night sky, you can see the moon. You can see the stars. And those are nowhere near us. Our awareness is so vast and expansive of things that are nowhere near us. So what are the limitations to our awareness? Are there limitations to our awareness? Our ability and capacity to notice and be aware of the things that are going on around us. And you can notice all of these things simultaneously. If you go out, if you were to be outside, you can, or even right now in your living room, you're aware of the space around you. You're aware of my voice, even though I'm not anywhere near you. You're aware of the things around you that you can see. And you're aware of all of these things simultaneously, right?
Yes.
So let's focus on a single statement. We brought up a issue, something that bothers us, and we've located it somewhere. It doesn't have to be in your body. So don't get hung up on where in your body or where around you, just in that space that you're aware of. Where is that issue? For Jade, it's in your throat. It's a lump in your throat that feels like somebody's squeezing it. So it's something that's tight and constricted there, right? You said your heart at first. Is your heart still a part of that?
Yeah, because I think it may be like a residual effect because the initial is the tenseness in my throat. That might be the other way around. But I also got like my heart just like starts palpitating and, like a fight or flight response.
So I am taking notes, by the way. I know you can't see it. I'm taking notes as we go so that we can refer back to everything. So you could say that you're aware of those feelings, or I am aware of this tightness inside my throat and the palpitation of my heart, right? You could say that I am. Now, this is where we talked about earlier. I'm making the transition from the ego to the I. So when we talk about I am aware of this feeling inside my throat, or for anybody else, you are aware of this feeling of whatever sensation qualities and wherever it is. There is an I that's aware of that. So Jade, what I want to ask you now, and everybody else do the same, where is the I that is aware of that sensation?
Good question.
Just feel for it. Where is the I that is perceiving the sensation? For Jade, where is the I that's perceiving the sensation of this tightness and constriction inside of my throat and the palpitations of my heart? And again, it doesn't have to be, it can be anywhere.
I would have to say that the I that is aware of that is still in that moment.
Well, someplace right now, if you say that there's somebody, see, we can take that to the next step. So if you think that the I is in that moment, where's the I that's observing that?
Mine's here in my head.
Yours is in your head.
It is. Is that helpful by any? It's loud. It's just it turns into chaos, but in here.
So everybody's going to experience, the whole process is highly experiential and highly individual. Nobody's going to have the same thing, and no answer is wrong.
Right.
So how you feel the sensations aren't wrong. How you feel the issue isn't wrong. Where the I is, it's going to be different for everybody.
Yeah,
For me, I'm sorry?
go ahead.
For me, a lot of times, I'm the same way. The I is inside of my head, but we want to get more specific for that.
Oh, okay.
So when we say that the I is in my head, where in your head? Is it your full head? Or is it in a specific area of your head? So
Right here.
Wendy, I noticed when you're talking about it, you keep going to the top of your head.
Right here.
So it's centered on the top of your head? Is it your entire top of your head? Is it above your head, or is it resting on your head like a hat? Is it inside of your head?
It's like pollution surrounding my head. It's toxic pollution, and it's hovering, but it's polluted deep into. It's almost like it's pollution, but it's rooted. It has roots that go right to my brain. Does that make any sense? I know that
It
sounds
doesn't
crazy.
need to make sense to me.
Okay.
I get it.
No, I just-
Okay.
That works.
for me, it's a little bit different. For me, the I that's experiencing those emotions from the situation that I'm envisioning is like that I is just underneath my skin, like the whole silhouette of me, just another me inside that is experiencing that in this moment. So like for me, the emotions I get, I do feel the tenseness in my throat, but for me, just envisioning and thinking about the situation, electricity is flowing all over my skin. The hairs on my skin stand up, and I feel pressure at the base of my skull.
Perfect.
And I feel the tenseness in my throat. But for me, it's just like that I is just within me and is just right there underneath the skin and feeling all of that.
Yeah. And that's good. So again, it doesn't have to be small. It doesn't have to be big. It can be bigger than us. It can be expansive. It can be small and contracted. Or it can be just like that. It could be another, like the silhouette of you. The key that I want to get is I want you to dial into the actual, where is it? What's the location of it? What are the sensations of it? So does any of that help, Jade? Help you find where the eye is right now that's observing what's happening?
Thinking in that sense is floating kind of above me, almost in a third person view.
Mm.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
It's almost like, and I get that feeling a lot anyway, but it's like I am me, but I'm watching me.
Mm-hmm.
Makes
Like an astral projection type thing. You're like watching over yourself.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So it's like it constantly gives me like a surreal feeling, like I'm here, but I'm not.
So,
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
so when you say that it's above you, is it you? Is it a,
It's definitely me. It's a part of me. It's more like an energetic form of me.
so when you see it, again, we don't want kind of, let's focus on the sensations of it.
Okay.
Is it heavy? Is it light? How does it feel?
Hmm.
So it's floating above you. Is it behind you and above you, or right above you?
It's almost like tethered to my head.
Okay. And is it a direct or an exact reproduction of you, or is it more of a shadow figure, or is it even a figure at all, or is it just like a floating blob, or what?
It's just
How does it look if you were to look at it?
It's kind of creepy.
No.
um,
Creepy.
I feel like it is just kind of like this greenish thing, and it's got arms or hands into the sides of my head, and it's not heavy, but I definitely feel the pull, if that makes sense. Almost like it's trying to pull me away.
So it's a blob,
Yeah.
or does it have a figure?
I don't sense a figure at all.
Okay, so that's a greenish blob, or mist, or fog, or
Yeah. It's more of a misty kind of deal.
okay. So it's a greenish mist floating over your head with arms going and anchoring into your head.
I feel like a crazy person right now, but yeah.
No.
What? Not at all.
Yeah. I mean, like that's like when I was listening to you guys describe what you're feeling, and I'm really thinking about it. It literally just feels like this green. I don't even know how to put it into words, but yeah,
How big is it?
it's pretty expansive. I'd say bigger than me, but probably about yay wide. It's
Okay. So you have a tenseness about the size of a hand inside of your throat gripping you, and that is observed, perceived by the eye that is floating over your head. It's green, kind of a mist, bigger than you are, with with anchors coming down inside of your head, right?
Right.
Okay. So,
Do you remember how I described that I felt like a hand was like going into my throat and gripping it? I feel like it's this part of me that's like gripping my throat and telling me, shut up, don't speak.
mhm. Okay, that's good. So now here's the next step for everybody. We've started with the issue. We've found the sensation of it, the feeling of it. We've identified that something is observing that. So we found the I that's observing that. And we've identified the I. Has everybody located their I?
Mhm.
And can describe those sensation qualities of the I?
Mhm.
So the next step is to invite that I to experience and melt into the awareness that you've experienced.
Okay. I see where you're going with that.
Check, does the sensation of the I welcome the invitation to open and relax as the fullness of awareness?
Yeah.
And it can be yes or no.
Sorry, I just. Um, I apologize. I'm having a little bit harder time with that than I thought I would.
No, that's fine. And I don't want you to have a hard time. The entire process should be easy, and if it's not easy, then there's other steps that we can take. Then if it's not easy, it's not being done right. It's the extent that nothing should be forced.
Right.
Because really, the I is a contraction. It's a contraction of ourself. And imagine what happens if you tense your hand up and your hand represents that contracted I. If you try to force it open, what are you doing? You're contracting your other hand. And you're gonna have nothing but resistance from the contracted I, and then you're forming another resistance. We don't want that. All that I want is easiness. All that I want is to ask that I that's perceiving the initial issue, do you accept the invitation to open into and integrate with awareness? Do you accept the invitation to open to and relax into awareness on your own? Do you, that I, accept that? If you don't, that's fine. If that I says, no, I don't, that's fine.
Yeah.
But it should be simple. Either it does or it doesn't. What does it want to do? And it doesn't even have to open all the way.
I'm definitely feeling resistance, fear.
Okay. Now, you're going to love this next step. I told you this process is very simple, right? So we've identified this I that you say it's resisting opening. It's resisting integrating with the vastness and the fullness of awareness. Where is the I that's perceiving that? So you have the big green eye over here that's perceiving and aware of this, or this, I'm sorry. This I isn't ready to open up into awareness. That's fine. Where's the I that's perceiving that I?
Right here.
Right here in the center of your chest?
Yeah.
Okay. And how big is it? Or where in your chest? Is it right Is it inside of your chest, on the surface, in front of, behind?
It's like right in the center, just under the surface. It's like a ball.
How big is the ball?
Small.
I'm sorry?
It's small. I'd probably say about the size of a tennis ball.
The size of a tennis ball?
Yeah, maybe.
And it's just round, it's perfectly round?
Yeah.
And how does it feel?
Warm and annoyed.
Warm and annoyed. What makes it annoyed? What are the sensation qualities of annoyed that make you interpret it that way?
There's a tenseness. There's a I actually heard the sound of like when I
Okay.
thought this green thing like not wanting to cooperate.
Okay, that's good. So the eye that's witnessing and observing the big green eye above us is in the center of your chest, just under the surface, about the size of a tennis ball, and it's warm, it's tense, and it just feels right?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, check with that eye. Does the sensation of that eye welcome the invitation to open and relax as the fullness of awareness? Or does that eye welcome the invitation for the fullness of awareness to flow through it?
Yeah.
Yes, it does.
Yes.
Okay. So take a moment just to experience that as that eye dissolves into, or the fullness of awareness merges into it, and it just relaxes into the fullness of all of the awareness around us. And just take a few moments to experience that and feel it, whatever it happens to be doing, however it happens to relax into that fullness of awareness. And let me know when you feel like it's fully relaxed into it.
I feel pretty chill.
It feels good?
Yeah.
Is there anything left of it? If you just go back and try to feel into that eye in the center of your chest, is there anything still remaining? No?
Just feel like and it's not even really a feeling, just sense like a kind of a pinkish glow.
Perfect. No, that's beautiful. That's wonderful. So now what I want you to do is go back to that eye, that green, bigger than you eye that's floating overhead and reaching into your head, and check with it again. Now that we've dissolved the eye that was watching that one, has it changed? Has this eye overhead changed? Or is it the same sensations?
No, it feels weaker.
Feels weaker.
Feels weaker.
Okay.
I mean, still there, but just
Okay.
it just feels weaker.
Perfect. So now ask it again. Check in with it again. The same eye. Does the sensation of this eye now welcome the invitation to open, relax into the fullness of awareness, or does it accept the invitation for the fullness of awareness to relax into it?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So give it a few moments for that eye to start relaxing into awareness, however that happens, however it seems, however it needs to do it.
think I'm good.
Okay, it's dissolved, it's gone.
Yeah.
Do you feel, are there any remnants still of it?
No.
No, it's all relaxed into the fullness of awareness. Perfect. So now what I want you to do is return back to that beginning sensation. That sensation that you had in your throat and in your heart. And check with that and ask yourself, or ask it, has anything changed? Are you noticing the same sensation or different sensation? Have the sensations changed, weakened, or done anything else?
I don't quite feel the pressure and the lump on my throat, but I still do feel a little bit of the palpitation.
Okay. A little bit of the palpitation is still left in your heart.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So what happens now if we do the same thing and we ask that sensation and we invite that sensation to open and relax into the fullness of awareness?
That's awkwardly easy.
I want it to be easy. If it's
Yeah.
not easy, we're doing something else.
That's very interesting.
So what has it done? What is it doing?
Just, I invited it to relax and come into the awareness with me, and it just stopped.
It accepted the invitation and it stopped.
It just stopped. Like I could feel it. Like when so when I say I had the palpitation, like I could literally almost like somebody was like tapping on my chest, but from the inside.
Wow.
Okay. And so I was feeling that. And anytime I feel that, I get very anxious. You know, I tend to have panic attacks and things of that nature. And it was just stopped. Just stopped. That was the weirdest feeling.
Mhm. So is anything left of that?
No.
So, and again, we don't need to deal with the context or the content of it.
Right.
You don't need to share anything that you don't want to share, but whatever the situation is or was that gives you that sensation, just take a moment to imagine yourself in that situation again and see how you feel, how you respond, how it feels to be in that sensation or in that initial situation. Does the sensation return? Does the issue come back?
No. I actually like thinking back to the situation because it happens quite often, unfortunately. I actually feel more confident, just more confident, more peaceful.
Perfect. And that's exactly what we want to happen. So, Missy, Wendy, did you get a chance to work through, follow along? Did you experience anything? What were your experiences?
I actually suffer with depersonalization, so my body won't let me feel anything, and it's kind of the suckiest feeling ever. So when I can focus on this, I can't find the outer eye focus. You know what I mean? I can't find the other eye. And it's like my brain automatically shuts off, and I'm like, oh, let's just not think of things.
So
And then-
this that's up here is the eye though.
Right, but you
Right.
said there's another eye that could focus
There
on.
doesn't have to be another eye now.
Right, and then my brain just won't let me feel anything else.
Okay. Well, that's something that we can we can work on and see how you experience it.
Okay.
I mean, the process is ideally very straightforward. What we just went through with Jade is there are some different nuances and variations that we can use to work with different things, but essentially the basic process is that you feel whatever your issue is, you have an issue that's bothering you, you put yourself in that, you feel the sensations, notice where the sensations are, in as much detail as you can. Where is it? What does it feel like? How big is it? Is it big? Is it small? Is it in me, outside of me? It doesn't, even the sensations themselves don't necessarily have to be inside of us, but they usually are.
Right.
And then when you start to get into all those details, where's the I that's noticing all of that? And ask that I first, do you accept the invitation to integrate with all of awareness? You only go beyond that if it says no.
Okay.
And a lot of times, not every time, obviously, like we just saw, but a lot of times, especially for minor issues or the mild issues that I want us to focus on in a situation like this, you don't have to go beyond that first I. A lot of times that first I will accept the invitation. It doesn't have to, though. And then we do the same thing. If the I says no, where is the I that is observing that? Where is the I that is perceiving the I that says no? And then develop your sensations into that and ask that I, well, do you accept the invitation to open and relax into all of awareness? And then work backwards.
I think I figured out where that's the one. Okay, so we got the green pollution, and then then you focus into to the, ask the other one. But that one is a mirror. I can see me face on, and that one was accepting. So yeah, okay. It was like all of a sudden it's me and it's face on.
Yeah. And when you ask that I,
Yeah,
get
that
into
one.
the sensations of that, make sure that we get into the sensation qualities of it. How big is it? What's it look like? How does it feel? Is it heavy? Is it light? Is it a mirror? Does it look exactly like a mirror? Or is it just the mirror image of you? Or what are the details of it? With as little content as possible, just focus on the feeling and sensation qualities, what you feel, hear, see, even smell of it. And then ask that I and invite that I to relax into the fullness or to relax and open into the fullness of awareness. And if it accepts, perfect. Then backtrack to the next I, the I that was being observed. And ask that I now, do you accept the invitation to open and relax into the fullness of awareness? Now, with that being said, it can say no again.
Okay.
Which means that there's another I for us to work with.
Yeah.
And then we do this process again. Well, where's the I that's now perceiving that one? And we feel into where it is, how big it is, how small it is, what are the sensation qualities? And we ask that one, well, now with the third I or the fourth I, however long it takes, do you accept the invitation to open and relax into the fullness of awareness? And then we, anytime that there's a no, that's all we have to do is find the next I. And then we continue to backtrack until we get back to this first I, and we ask it again. Now, and notice before we ask it again, if anything's changed, has it gotten weaker? Has it started to dissolve? Maybe it's already started to open up into awareness. And then we ask it, we give it the invitation. Do you accept the invitation to open and dissolve, or open and relax into the fullness of awareness? And then once that I says yes, then we go back to that physical sensation that was bothering us to begin with, wherever that was, however it felt. notice first before we ask anything. Notice first what it's already doing. Is it even still there? Has it already started to open up? Do you have different sensation qualities now, that's why we focus on the sensation qualities. It's easier to notice the difference and the changes when we focus on the sensation quality rather than when we focus on the content and our interpretations of these sensation qualities. Does that make sense? So
Absolutely.
focus on how it actually feels, how big it is. Maybe it's still tight and dense, but it's smaller. Or maybe it's opened up. But notice that there's a difference, if there's a difference. And then ask that and invite that, the original sensation that we started with. Do you accept the invitation to open and relax into the fullness of awareness?
Process.
And then if we need to, then it's also important, don't forget this. If you guys start doing it on your own, don't forget to put yourself back in that situation, just like we did in the beginning, for you to be able to sense into the feeling to begin with. Put yourself back in the situation. Mentally regress yourself into the situation and see how you feel now. Does the change stick with you when you put yourself back in that situation? And if you can, go forward in time also. And imagine not a situation that's already happened, but the same thing, the same type of situation, but in the future. If the situation were to happen again and I were to be in the middle of it again, how do I feel? Does that make sense?
Makes perfect sense.
So Missy, what was your?
My experience, that initial eye, that I described as like the silhouette of me, but inside me, just under the skin, observing those reactions to that situation. I didn't explain it before, but for me, it's very, very heavy and red. And when I asked if it was open and willing to relax into awareness, it was just like Jade's experience. I immediately got a no. And I felt that in a way that I enjoyed those sensations. It enjoyed being upset. It enjoyed those reactions, and it wasn't willing to let go of those. So when I asked about the eye that's observing that eye, the secondary eye was a silhouette of myself larger than me, just outside of my body, almost like that first layer of your aura. And this was very white, very fluid, very peaceful, complete opposite of the I in me that was in the middle of those feelings and emotions. And when I asked that eye if it was open and willing to relax into awareness, I immediately got a yes. And then looking at that first eye, it had already started to change. It wasn't red any longer. It was pinkish white. So it was like they had started to merge. And it wasn't as like I said, it wasn't as bright. It didn't feel as heavy. It had started to become lighter already. And then when I asked it if it was willing to relax and into awareness, it did. And it was like a melting of sorts. And at that point, when I put myself back in that situation, I no longer had that reaction. Those reactions didn't happen in my body. And then thinking about, I know this is going to happen again because it happens almost 2 or 3 times a week when I interact with a specific person. Thinking forward, I don't see that happening again.
Perfect. Now, so that's the process.
So
It's very simple. It's very straightforward, and it should be and feel easy. It should not feel forced for the same reason that I demonstrated. It's a very simple metaphor. It's just like the clenched hand. You can't force it open with more tension and more force without creating more tension and more force, potentially generating another I, another self, another ego. The whole point is we're asking it and inviting it to just relax into it without force. And if it won't relax, that's the next step. It doesn't have to, it's not always, a lot of times with the smaller issues, the little things that are just pushing our button, it can be one ego, one step that we need to go through, one I that we need to dissolve. Everybody experienced having to go to another level. And like I explained with Wendy, there's the potential that you do have to keep going to another level and another level. It's not likely that you're going to have to do that very often. It's not entirely out of the realm of possibility, but I don't know anybody that's had to go 10 levels. You know what I mean?
Well,
Like-
you did say mild to medium, so.
And see, the thing is that as you start to do it and you start working with the mild to medium things, and it'll become easier. And in the same way that you ask the first eye and the first eye says, no, I don't want to. I'm not ready to let go yet. So you go to the next eye that observed that. And that eye says, yeah, I'm okay with that. Let's try it out. Let's see how it feels. Oh my God, it feels good. Social proof, right?
Right.
So now your other eye says, okay, now not only it doesn't have that backup to say, nah, we're not doing that. The other eye tried it out. It looked good. It felt good. So this eye's more open to it. And this eye starts to dissolve. And now you can go to that root sensation and it does it. Well, the more that you do this with minor little things, the fewer eyes that you have to work with overall, the more social proof that your next eye is going to have what it takes to say, okay, yeah, I'll try that. And so the bigger eyes or the bigger issues might very well become smaller issues. Or at the very least, even if they are still big issues, they might be big issues that are more open to opening and relaxing into the fullness of awareness. It won't take quite as much work. But like I said, it's a practice. It's not an instantaneous Buddha moment. You do need to keep working with it. And I'm sure the feeling that you felt it felt good. It feels good when you've dissolved these issues and you've dissolved the egos and the eyes, and all you have is awareness left. To me, that is what it feels like to open up into to have an awakening, I'd imagine, or to kind of step foot into enlightenment, even just for a moment. That's the idea. Now we've dissolved into total awareness, even if just for a moment. But we can keep practicing it over and over and over again for any of these mild issues. At first, the issues don't have to stay mild. I'm guessing that none of you here followed directions and picked things that weren't quite mild, or more medium than mild, and it still worked.
Well, in our defense, you did say mild to medium, so.
Right.
I couldn't think of anything mild, so.
Well, it
Yeah.
works though. So that demonstrates it, and that's the key. That's what I really want the takeaway to be. This is a powerful technique, as simple as it is. I don't want to say easy about the technique because you're gonna work with hard things, and it's not gonna be easy. You're gonna confront eyes that don't want to let go, and that's not necessarily easy. But I don't want resistance. You don't want force. Don't force it to happen. Sometimes it's really just not ready. Sometimes maybe the eye is there for a good reason, and sometimes we have to tread softly around it Because really, like I said in the beginning, the I is another word for the ego, and the ego is there and doesn't want to let go because it's a survival skill. It's trying to survive. And sometimes that ego is so tight because maybe it still feels like it's still necessary. But one of the things to remember cognitively is that I'm not asking you to get rid of it. Whatever skills you've learned, I'm not asking you to get rid of them.
This is true. I have a question. So this process, just so I have a clear understanding, when you're asking that I that's experiencing or observing this sensation that you have,
Mhm.
and you ask it to dissolve or, you know, relax into your awareness,
Mhm.
is this, in a sense, that is that the belief system, in a sense, that we've created of sorts, or like what exactly is it? I mean, I know we're saying that it's ego and, you know, things like that, or is that just all relative to the experiencer?
It's all relative. You tell me what it is. You're the one working with it. I don't have a clue what you just worked with.
This is very true.
We didn't get into the content of it at all. I don't have a clue. But I know that at least from the video, I don't see a big green blob floating over your head with tentacles reaching into it.
Right.
So I know that you didn't really actually just work with that. And I know, Wendy, I don't see any smoke cloud of pollution floating over your head. So no, you didn't just work with that.
Are you sure? Hold on.
Pretty positive. But whatever it is something that you saw. It's something that you felt, and it's something that you experienced, and it's something that dissolved into awareness.
Right. How about that? Chip?
How it works?
Right.
It
Okay.
works.
It just does, right? It just works.
I'm not really in a position to say if it's all psychological or if it's all spiritual. Are you working with actual energy? Is this energy work?
Possibly.
Possibly. It is a psychological process?
Probably.
Possibly.
Probably all the above.
But as
really.
far as what you can work with, you can work with beliefs. If a belief is limiting to you and makes you feel a certain way, work with it. If it's an emotion, work with it. If it's a reaction to something that somebody says, work with it. Like I said in the beginning, the technique itself has expanded over time to encompass a lot more than what it actually started as. Because it works. If there's anything that you're experiencing and you have a reaction to it that you can actually sense into, try it. If you can get into the sensations and remove for yourself the content of it and focus on the actual sensations so that you can notice the changes, what does it hurt to try it? And like I said, at no point am I asking you to get rid of something. I've never asked you to get rid of anything. Except we're inviting this thing to expand into awareness. And awareness, like we showed earlier, is what you can notice. So just because we're asking it to expand into awareness doesn't mean we're asking it to anything that we've learned from it, anything that's benefited from it, or that we've benefited from it positively is still there. We've just asked it to stop being tight and constricted and a problem and to relax.
Ha. How about that?
Does that make sense?
It does.
So it's not a problem for us anymore. It's all we're doing. So for like you asked initially, Wendy, what do you do if you actually are one of those people that feels like, oh, I'm just living in my emotions. My emotions have me trapped. That That's exactly what you do. These emotions have me trapped. Well, how does that feel? Where does it feel like that? Again, the sensation doesn't have to be inside of us. If I feel trapped, what's the sensation of being trapped? Is it a cage that's around me? Is it like being stuck in a glove that's constricting me? What are the feelings of that? What does it feel like? What does it look like? How big is the cage or the glove? And where's the eye that's perceiving all of this that's going on? Yeah, it works better when we work with small, simple things. But there's nothing saying that we can't try it like that. I can't guarantee it's going to work. All that I can do and say is that you each tried something tonight and it worked.
I feel like, thinking about all of these aspects that you talked about with the ego, and that I'm getting this sense that, the I that's perceiving these sensations, they're parts of us that have, for one reason or another, detached from our being in some way. And so in this process, and of course this is just my perception of it, it's like drawing those parts of us back into the oneness and fullness of who we are. And I guess part of why I feel that way is someone like me who has certain disorders, detachment is a thing. It's a humongous issue. And so I feel actually like I may have some hope in kind of bringing all of these experiences back to where I am, instead of out there into the millions of space and time that's, out there lurking in.
Yeah. And that's perfect. That's good. So keep practicing, keep working with it, keep practicing with it,
Definitely.
and see how it works. Remember, it's a simple, basic process. Yes, there's more to it. And if at any point you hit like a stumbling block or a roadblock that you can't figure out how to get around, feel free to reach out to me. I'm more than happy to work with you one-on-one to help you move past and overcome whatever it is. I wanted to keep it small, mild to medium, for the sake of not having a 3-hour video. And that's it. It's not to say that it can't be done, and it's not to say that we can't work around any obstacles or challenges to it within this system specifically. We can. So give it a shot in this simple form, and try it with anything that pops up. And if it works, great. If it doesn't, if you hit a roadblock, don't give up. Reach out to me, find me wherever I am, and we'll work through it. We'll work with it. So with that being said, I did want to take just a few minutes to let everybody know, everybody that's here, and anybody and everybody that watches it later in the recording, I do have a course coming up. Or not a course necessarily, but the group program. And I know, Wendy, you're already signed up for it. The group program involves a lot of, essentially, one of the things that I do, Jade, you may or not know this, is that I'm actually a hand analyst, which is a fancy word for a palm reader.
Right.
And what I focus on, though, is on the fingerprints. And the fingerprints don't necessarily tell us personality traits and personality characteristics. What they tell us is something about our soul psychology, which is our life purpose and our life lessons and things that we're here to do on a big picture scale. And when I work one-on-one with people, normally I usually spend an hour to an hour and a half with them, and it's kind of a one and done thing. Where I say, okay, well, looking at your hands, looking at your fingerprints, this is what I see your life purpose and your life lesson as. Does it make sense? We'll get into the details of it, drill down into the specifics, and that's usually it. And that's completely unfulfilling to me, because it's like giving you the keys to a Ferrari, or better yet, giving you the keys to a motorcycle without ever having taught you how to do it or without giving you lessons.
Right.
So in the ongoing coaching and the ongoing work that I want to do is I want to give you the blueprint to your soul psychology from your fingerprints and then give you those lessons. Actually show you how to tune into it and work with it and expand it and do what you're actually here to do rather than just give you the keys and let you go figure it out on your own. That could take you a lifetime. And yeah, it's a life purpose and a life lesson, and it will take you a lifetime, but there's no reason for you to have to struggle with it for that long. So I'm opening up, like we talked about before, I don't have, there's not enough hours in the day for me to work with people one-on-one like I want to. So the best way for me to do it is in a group setting. And so that's where the group program comes in and what I'm opening up. And each group program, right now the group program is a 6-week program, and it starts off with a full session for your hand analysis and your fingerprint analysis. So we start off by laying out your blueprint for soul psychology and what you're here to do and your life purpose and your life lessons. And then the next 6 weeks is about, well, how do we actually tune into that? How do we get in alignment with it? What do I do to express that? And how do I work with that energy? And a lot of that is going to be about clearing blockages and clearing things that are in our way. A lot of that, that's going to be one of the things that we do. And I'll tell you right now that this technique, this process, is something that I'm going to walk people through and offer and continue to push because it works for it. And especially with people that have emotional purposes or lessons or things that come up in their hands.
Mm-hmm.
So, so this is the first time that I'm offering a group program. So it's kind of a beta launch, a beta version. And because of that, I'm essentially offering it at no cost. I know I'm asking you to pay $300, $297. But that $297 is the cost of the hour and a half long hand analysis session. So you're paying for that, and then you're getting the next 6 weeks for free.
Right.
And that's the investment. And the reason for that is that one, it is 6 weeks. And also it's been proven time and time again that when there's no investment, there's very little likelihood of there being anything gained. So the group program is a $297 investment. You get a full hour to an hour and a half long fingerprint analysis session where we go into the blueprints of your soul psychology and how that plays out. And then you get 6 weeks of group work. The group work isn't going to be, I'm not asking you to show up every week for an hour or 2 hours. I'm asking you to show up every other week for 2 hours. I'm limiting it to 4 people. And the reason for that is that with 4 people in a 2-hour session, you get about 20 to 30 minutes of one-on-one work, one-on-one coaching, and then you get to experience everything from that everybody else has.
Okay.
So you actually get a lot from it. And on top of that, while it's only every other week, the reason for that is that one, I don't want there to be any rush or pressure to get something done and accomplished in a week when life can sure as hell get in the way of that. I know Missy knows.
Mm-hmm.
Life will sure as hell find a way to get in the way of whatever your plans are. So you've got 2 weeks to figure out and see the changes and see the work and see everything evolve and as we go. Plus, there's going to be a private Facebook group where post away whatever questions you have, post in the interim in the 2 week period, and we'll answer them. We'll get to it. So you have unlimited access, unlimited support along the way. So we're not just leaving you hanging in between. And I can't promise that through Facebook and through that group, I'm not going to give you more work to do in between either. It's just not going to be done through the videos.
Okay.
Does that make sense? So are there any questions about that?
No questions, just comment.
Yeah, I was
I'm really looking forward to being able to be a person if that makes any sense to anybody. I'm learning how to be a human for the first time. I was given poor coping skills and bad behavior skills growing up, and it's affected me as an adult. And I'm just really looking forward to moving on with that and just being a person.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, we're happy to be there for you.
And I'm
So-
happy you guys are here too, because man, you guys have been really beneficial. I'm serious. This has been one very beneficial group for me, and it's a godsend. And I just mean that from the bottom of my heart. So thanks.
Well, thank you.
We love
So-
you, Wendy.
To wrap it up,
One comment,
Good.
because this is going to be a video, and that those that registered, at least 10 people, will go back and hopefully watch this. I can speak from the position of someone who has had my fingerprint analysis done, as well as hand analysis with Ty. And the Missy 9 months ago is not the same Missy that I am today. And I can attribute that a lot to the work that I've done with Ty. Even my son, who hadn't spent a lot of time with me, because we live in different states, when I had surgery at the end of last year, came up to help me. He was like, wow, Mom, you're really different. Because I'm one of those people that through the discovery of, my fingerprint analysis, my life school, my life purpose, and my life's journey is all the same. And it's love and emotional authenticity. And I have gone back and watched the video with Ty, I don't know, 100 times probably since it happened, and worked through it. And if it would have been probably an easier transition if we had a group like that Ty is putting together now, to have that roadmap instead of, rewatching that video hundreds of times and working through it on my own. But it has changed my life. It's changed who I am. And so I will be getting with you, Ty. I know I already reached out to you already. I do want to be a part of the group session that you have coming up. And just anybody that's on the fence, it really is life-changing work. And if you put the work into it, it can change your life.
thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
So we've gone a little bit over on time. I know I said it would be an hour, but we did some good work tonight. And I know that everybody that watches this later will be able to go through the process and see that it works and hope the same benefit from it. So with that being said, again, try it. Start with the easier things first and see that there is benefit and that it does work, and then work towards the bigger things with this process to begin with. And then again, if anybody's interested in the group program, again, there's limited availability. So it sounds like it's half full now. There's only four spots available, so that leaves 2 spots open. If anybody wants to sign up for that, there are links everywhere. Or you can go to my website. It's integralhands.com, and I'll include that and check out what it's about. See if you're interested and reach out to me. There is no automated registration. I want to be able to talk to everybody one-on-one and make sure that you're a good fit. Again, there's only 4 spots available. So I'm not just trying to fill the spots. I want to make sure that everybody's a good fit with me, that I'm somebody that you want to work with, because I am expecting actual work, and that you're going to fit into the group and be a good fit with the group. So if you're interested, reach out and we can talk about it, and I'll give you the details. And I appreciate everybody that showed up, everybody that watches this. If you have any questions, again, reach out to me. Don't hesitate. Don't feel any kind of way about it. Just reach out. If you do the process and you run into a roadblock, I'm more than happy to walk you through it, to do a one-on-one session, and get you over, around, through, however we need to overcome the obstacle. We'll take the route that we need to take. Okay? So I hope everybody enjoyed it. I hope everybody got something from it, and I hope that everybody has a great night. All right.
Thank you, Ty.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.